Thanks for tuning in to your daily dose of quick real estate updates, local housing trends, and market data, plus tips, tools, and strategies to help you buy, rent, or invest with confidence. You're now getting ready with RealiCare Reports, powered by the innovation team, Cami and Rex. Now go grab your favorite morning beverage, whether that's coffee or tea, and let's enjoy this episode.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're digging into a real estate market report that one of you actually shared. This one's for Brevard County, Florida, looking at Q1 2025.
Right. First quarter data.
Exactly. And our goal here is pretty straightforward. Cut through all the numbers and pull out the really key insights. What's actually happening in the local housing market right now?
Yeah. Get the real story behind the stats.
The report helpfully splits things out, single-family homes and then townhouses and condos separately. So we should get a good look at both.
Definitely gives a clearer picture that way.
Okay, so kicking things off, what were the big headlines that jumped out at you first from this report?
Well, looking at single-family homes first, the thing that immediately stands out is a slight cooling. You can see it in the closed sales.
Okay.
They were down about 3.5% compared to Q1 last year. So 2,201 homes sold versus 2,282 back then.
Noticeable dip.
And interestingly, cash sales took a hit too. For single-family homes, they dropped by a pretty significant 8.1%.
Wow, okay. So fewer overall sales and a bigger drop in cash buyers for single family. That definitely points to something shifting.
It does.
Let's maybe dig into the supply side a bit. What's happening with inventory and how quickly homes are actually selling?
Absolutely. So for single family, if you look at supply and demand, you see new pending sales homes going under contract. They're down about 3.9%.
Okay, so a bit less buyer urgency maybe.
Seems like it. But on the other hand, you've got new listings actually up slightly by 1.8%.
Ah, okay. So fewer contracts being signed, but a few more houses coming onto the market.
Exactly. And the result of those two things moving in opposite directions is a pretty big jump, 25% in the month's supply of inventory.
25% increase.
Yeah. That metric basically tells you how long it would take to sell all the current homes listed if sales continued at the current pace. It went from 3.6 months last year to 4.5 months now in Q1 2025.
Okay, 4.5 months supply for single family. So for you, the listener, if you're looking to buy a single family home there right now, what does that jump really mean on the ground?
Well, what it really boils down to is likely more choices for you and maybe less pressure, less need to make a snap decision.
Right.
A higher month's supply like this, moving towards 4 or 5 months, generally signals a market that's becoming more balanced. It's shifting away from that extreme seller's market we saw.
So buyers might have a bit more time, maybe a little more negotiating room.
That's typically what happens, yes.
Well,
more leverage between.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, the big one everyone watches, prices. What did the report show for single-family home prices?
For single family, the median sales price actually dipped, but only slightly. It was down just 0.2%, landing at $374,290.
So pretty stable overall then, almost flat.
Almost flat, yeah. Though it's worth noting, if you filter out distressed sales and just look at traditional sales, regular market deals, the median price there was $375,000. That was actually down a bit more by 3.4%.
Interesting. So the overall median is held up a bit, but typical sales saw a slightly bigger dip. Now, you mentioned distressed sales. The report breaks those out, foreclosures, short sales. What's the picture there for single family?
Yeah, this was quite striking, actually. A really significant decrease in distressed sales for single-family homes.
Oh, really? Down?
Yes.
Yeah.
Foreclosure REO sales were down 14.3%. Only 18 of those closed in the whole quarter, with a median price around $270,500.
Just 18.
And short sales, even fewer, down 25%, with only 3 closings. The median there was $272,000.
Wow. 3 short sales. I mean, those numbers are incredibly low across the board for distressed properties. What does that tell you?
It strongly suggests that, despite the market cooling a bit, the vast majority of homeowners are doing okay financially. They're not in trouble.
All right, not seeing widespread distress.
Exactly. The low number of foreclosures and short sales indicates we're not seeing a wave of people forced to sell. And that's probably a key reason why we're seeing this more gradual adjustment, this cooling, rather than, a sharp downturn or a crash.
Okay, that's a really crucial point. So if you had to sum up the key takeaway for single-family homes in Brevard in Q1 2025 for someone listening, What's the headline?
I'd say the main takeaway is the market is definitely cooling and moving towards better balance. Inventories is up, prices have edged down slightly, but critically, the very low levels of distressed sales suggest the market's foundation is still pretty solid. It's not showing signs of a major collapse.
Okay, solid overview for single family. Now let's switch gears. The report also covers townhouses and condos. And you hinted the story might be a bit different there.
That's right. When you look at the townhouse and condo segment, the data shows a more pronounced cooling trend.
More pronounced. How so?
Well, closed sales dropped more significantly than for single family. They were down 8.8%. That's 506 units sold versus 555 last year.
Okay, nearly a 9% drop in sales.
And like single family, cash sales also fell, down 9.8% in this segment.
So a bigger drop in sales volume for townhouses and condos. What about the supply and demand picture here? Is it tracking similarly?
Actually, the shift there is even more dramatic. New pending sales for townhouses and condos. They fell quite a bit, down 12.3%.
Wow. Double-digit drop in pending sales, so weaker demand.
Definitely weaker buyer demand indicated there. And at the same time, new listings shot up quite a bit by 8.1%.
Oof. So demand down significantly, supply up significantly. That sounds like a recipe for.
Exactly. It led to a really substantial increase in the month's supply of inventory. It jumped by a whopping 45.8%.
Whoa, nearly 46%. Where did it land?
It went from 5.9 months in Q1 2024 all the way up to 8.6 months in Q1 2025.
8.6 months of inventory for townhouses and condos. That sounds high. What does that level really mean if you're looking to buy one?
Yeah, 8.6 months is definitely moving into strong buyer's market territory.
Yeah.
It means if you're looking for a townhouse or condo, you likely have a much wider selection to pick from.
Okay.
You've got significantly more time to decide and, frankly, considerably more leverage when it comes to negotiating the price compared to, say, the single-family market right now.
Right. That's a stark contrast to the 4.5 months for single-family homes. Big difference in buyer power.
Huge difference.
Okay, so lots more inventory. What about prices for townhouses and condos? Did they follow suit?
They did decrease, yes. The median sales price was down 1.7%, landing at $295,000. That's compared to just under $300,000 a year ago.
So a dip similar percentage-wise to the overall single-family dip, actually?
The overall median, yes. But again, looking just at the traditional sales for townhouses and condos, that median was also $295,000. But that represented a much more substantial decrease of 9.4% compared to traditional sales last year.
Okay, so more available units and a more noticeable price decline in those typical non-distressed sales. That's significant.
Very significant for buyers in that segment.
Now, what about distressed sales here? Did they also decrease like in the single-family market?
And here's where we see another key difference, a real divergence.
Okay.
Unlike single-family homes, foreclosure REO sales for townhouses and condos actually increased significantly. They were up 66.7%.
Increased. Wow. By how much?
Well, the percentage sounds huge, but the absolute numbers are still small. It was 5 closed REO sales, compared to maybe 3 the year before. The median price on those was $225,000.
Okay, so still very low volume, but the trend is the opposite of single family.
Exactly. And short sales.
Sure.
There was only one single closing reported at $335,000. So the report shows NA for the percentage change. It's just too small a number.
Got it. But that rise in REO sales, even if it's just a couple more sales, is really interesting when single-family REOs were dropping. What might be behind that difference? Are condo owners facing different pressures?
That's a really insightful question. It could suggest that, yeah, maybe owners of townhouses and condos are facing slightly different economic headwinds than single-family homeowners. It might relate to things like HOA fees increasing, maybe different loan types being more common, or perhaps less accumulated equity on average in those types of properties.
Right, could be several factors.
Yeah, but even with the small absolute numbers, the fact that distressed sales are ticking up for condos while decreasing for single family, that's a definite trend worth watching.
Absolutely. Okay, so summing up the townhouse and condo market then, what's the main takeaway for someone listening about this segment in Brevard?
The primary message here is that this market segment is cooling off faster, much faster than single-family homes. You're seeing demand drop considerably, inventory surge, and prices decline, especially in traditional sales.
Giving buyers a clear edge.
A significant advantage, yes. And the fact that distressed sales, however small, are actually increasing here unlike in the single-family market, is a key differentiator to keep in mind.
Okay, great breakdown of both segments. So let's pull back now. We've looked at single family, we've looked at townhouse condos. What's the overall narrative for the Brevard County real estate market based on this Q1 report for anyone thinking about making a move there?
Looking at the whole picture, you can definitely see a clear trend towards softening across the county. Sales are down, inventory's up.
Right, softening seems like the right word.
Yeah. And while prices are nudging downwards, particularly for condos and townhouses and traditional sales, it's really important to repeat, this data doesn't scream market collapse.
No signs of a crash in these numbers?
Not at all, especially with those low distressed numbers in single family. But the big story is that increased inventory. It's giving buyers more breathing room, more negotiating power.
Especially, as you said, if you're looking at townhouses or condos.
Definitely more pronounced there. And that contrast we talked about in distressed sales trends between the two property types, it just highlights that there might be different underlying currents affecting each part of the market.
Right, that inventory buildup really seems key, shifting the power dynamic. And yeah, keeping an eye on why distressed sales are behaving differently will be important. So for you listening, maybe you're considering buying or selling in Brevard. What's the kind of the final big picture takeaway here?
I think the overarching picture is simply one of a market in transition. It's clearly not the superheated, frenzy-driven seller's market of the last couple of years.
Things have changed.
Things have definitely changed. If you're a buyer, particularly in that townhouse condo space, you're likely finding more options and, frankly, better opportunities to negotiate.
And sellers.
If you're selling, well, you probably need to be realistic. Adjust your expectations, your pricing strategy to match these current conditions. It's just a different landscape now.
Okay, so just a quick recap for everyone then. This Q1 2025 report points to cooling sales activity, a noticeable rise in the number of homes available, and some modest downward adjustments on price, especially for townhouses and condos in Brevard County. Definitely useful info if you're thinking of real estate there.
Exactly. It provides really valuable context.
Yeah.
And, it prompts a good final thought for you to mull over.
Oh.
Yeah. Think about what other factors, things beyond these specific Q1 stats, might influence where the Brevard market goes next. Things like what's happening with the broader economy, where are interest rates headed? Are there big local developments or, conversely, major employer news coming?
Right, things outside the report itself that could push the market one way or the other in the coming months.
Precisely. Those external factors could definitely shape what we see in the Q2 numbers and beyond. Something to keep an eye on.
Well, that wraps up today's episode of RealiCare Reports, where real estate meets real life. For more updates, tools, and insights that will help you buy, rent, or invest with confidence, be sure to follow, subscribe, stay connected, stay informed, and stay ready. Until next time.